Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Afternoon. We're going to start with LSU football. By now, I think you all know where we're going to start. I listened to the morning show this morning, and they led with it. I listened to Live at Lunch at 11 o'clock. They led with it. I'm going to lead with it, and I'm assuming Matt Moscona is going to lead with it right here in about 2 hours. It's Brian Kelly's Sound with Jacques Doucet over at Channel 9. Jacques does a fantastic job of getting sit-down interviews with some of the folks over at LSU, and he got about half an hour with Brian Kelly, and you can find that over at WAFB.com and really all over the internet at this point. And I want to play some of that sound, show some of the reaction that we've seen, and give my reaction on it as well in regards to name, image, and likeness. I'll say this. This hit the internet last night. And I've been interested in the response. It's a sit-down between Jacques and Brian Kelly, and he talks about their recruitment of defensive tackles, which he was very open about after the season ended and entering spring ball. Like, we've got to go get some defensive tackles, and we know at this point that LSU has not landed defensive tackles. They got one transfer from Wisconsin. They had numerous other visitors on campus, offers out, and they were spurned for other destinations. And Brian Kelly talked about this process, and this is what he had to say.
So the D-line, interior D lineman, where are you right now with that?
Well, I think I made it pretty clear in a number of the press conferences that I had that we were in the market in recruiting in the transfer portal looking for defensive linemen. It hasn't fared very well, quite frankly, because we're selling something a little bit differently, and that is we want to recruit. We want to engage, build relationships. We want to develop, retain, and have success. We're not in the market of buying players, and unfortunately, right now, that's what some guys are looking for.
And that's the soundbite that everybody absolutely took and ran a mile with. And what I'm learning here, and let me preface this by saying, I really dislike poor pitiful me fan. I don't like when fans say that Joe announcer hates them. That drives me nuts. The A&M fans were all over Tom Hart in baseball over the weekend. I think that's stupid. I think it's stupid that LSU fans jump down Gary Danielson's throat. If you're the fan that says this announcer hates my team, this announcer hates my team, I'm not really going to level with you on that. That's kind of poor pitiful me stuff that doesn't really matter. And so I don't like that side of it. What I'm learning is that a lot of people are not huge Brian Kelly fans. And trust me, I was not a huge Brian Kelly fan when he was in South Bend. Now, that had far more to do with the team he was coaching than actual Brian Kelly, because I wasn't spending a lot of time concerning myself with Brian Kelly at that point, but I don't like Notre Dame. He was there. That's pretty easy. But I would point you to some of the reaction to that soundbite on Twitter from people who cover and commentate on college football. Spencer Hall, who's a staple on college football Twitter, and I think it's hilarious, said, "Baby, you better get in the market of buying players." You had Stephen Godfrey, who's all over the Twitter world with college football, said, "So, who's LSU hiring in 2026? Taking a shot at Brian Kelly there. Andy Staples, who I have a ton of respect for as a college football voice, had this to say on 3.
That's not the way you say it in the year of our Lord 2024, Brian Kelly, because everybody's buying players. There's nothing wrong with buying players. It's perfectly within the rules. When you say that, you know what the world thinks you are? A broke boy. They think your collective's broke. They think you can't afford anybody. They think you don't want to live in this world. They think the guy...
And that's basically what he has to say there. And I just disagree with all of that. Here's what I think Brian Kelly was saying, and that bite is extended with Jacques Doucet, and you can go check it out on WP.com. But that's not what he's saying, that we're broke and that we're never going to buy players. Brian Kelly did not say LSU is closed on the NIL marketplace. Like, Dabo Swinney came out and said Clemson football is not an NIL program. In fact, it is an NIL program. We're in the name, image, and likeness of God, which is fine if you believe that. But if you're going to not pay any of your players and have them have any sort of financial compensation, you're going to be in big trouble. And I think Clemson is in big trouble. Brian Kelly is not saying that. He actually said the opposite with Jacques Doucet. And he said there are some fantastic opportunities in and around Baton Rouge and in this community to make things happen with your name, image, and likeness. He said that to Jacques. And that clearly happens at LSU. So he's not saying we're not interested in players getting compensated at all. But I do believe he's saying we have to be careful in our recruiting pitches and with the people we bring into our football program. I will say this. College locker rooms right now are the most volatile locker rooms in the history of athletics. You're talking about a situation where money is available more upfront than it's ever been, which is a huge change over decades and decades of college athletics. And you're talking about a situation where if a player is unhappy, they can bolt at the drop of a hat. So you got to be careful about the dynamics of your locker room. And if you're going to bring in a player for 4 months and pay them a ton of money, you need to be sure that's going to be okay with the rest of your locker room. I can't speak to exactly what some of these defensive tackles were asking for or expecting. I can't speak to what LSU's current roster is making on the NIL front. I don't know those details. But I do know that in terms of track record, production, in terms of draftability, accolades, respect in the locker room, guys like Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Harold Perkins, Garrett Nussmeier, these guys have far more skins on the wall than any of these defensive tackles that LSU's looking at. And if you want to bring those guys in and risk a little bit of friction in the locker room because who is this guy that just came in, who's got all this money? Well, where's my money? And I don't know if that's going to happen, but you have to consider it when you start talking about dumping a bunch of money in. And then if you've got a guy who only showed up for the cash, not for the relationships with the coaching staff, not for the development, not to play in the SEC, he just showed up because that school offered $400,000 and this school offered $600,000 and you offered $710,000 and you win, so he's coming to you. What happens when you lose your second game? What assurances do you have that that guy has made any commitment to your program and it's going to do things the right way? I don't know. But it's worth considering. What is also worth considering is what the state of your roster is and what you need to do to maximize it on the field. That is also a consideration, and it's going to cost money. The fact of the matter is there are more corners and wide receivers available than there are defensive tackles. That's just biology. There aren't that many 6'2", 310-pound guys that can move. There's plenty of them that are 5'11", 195 and can run like a deer. Therefore, the market suggests this is what it's going to take, and this is what people are going to bid. And so Brian Kelly, I believe, is weighing this entire situation. I don't know that. I believe he's looking at everything and taking it into account. What am I bringing in on the field? What am I bringing in off the field? You know how important culture is to Brian Kelly. He has talked about it nonstop since he got here. And if there are players that may help the team but may hurt the culture, he's not interested. Go ask Jimbo Fisher how that signing class looked from 3 years ago. What did that do to Texas A&M football? It broke it. You've got to have talent to win. There is no question about it. Jay Johnson says this all the time from a baseball perspective. We can't do what we need to do without major league players. And the same goes for football. You don't have guys that are going to play in the NFL, you're toast at the level that LSU is trying to play at. So you've got to play the game to a certain extent, but at what cost? Both literally and figuratively. LSU's collective is not broke. LSU is not a broke boy, which is what Andy Staples is suggesting. If LSU was broke, you would not look at the high school signing class they've got coming in that's got the number one quarterback in the country, who's the number one player in the country from Michigan, the number one wide receiver in the country from Texas, the number one running back in the country who had offers from everybody down here in New Orleans, and all these stars they pulled in. You think that was 100% based on culture and development? No. There's got to be something there. This just wasn't a price LSU was willing to pay. And if you sit there and suggest as an LSU fan that's not a good answer, I'm okay with you feeling that way because LSU is in a bad way at defensive tackle, and I understand your plight. But if you want to jump down Brian Kelly's throat and tell him that the collective's broke and that he doesn't understand football and you better get in the market of buying players and that LSU's going to have to hire a new coach in 2026, I'd say, whoa, that's really cool to put out on Twitter. Sounds fun, but it's not the reality. And you're cherry-picking quotes because I believe you're not a big Brian Kelly fan. It's been eye-opening to watch the reactions from people around the country and from LSU fans about this. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, and most people are just ditching nuance and tossing it to the wind. You better pay players. You better get defensive tackles. You better get talent. There's nuance to this entire situation. There has never been a more difficult time to handle a college football locker room than today. Never. You got conferences realigning, transfer portals open, money's flying all over the place. You got a bunch of immature human beings because all of us are immature between 18 and 22. Just is what it is. That's a hard thing to balance, and it's important to Brian Kelly to try to balance it. And if it's going to cost him a win or two here in 2024 to keep things on the straight and narrow, I think he's probably willing to take that risk. If you think as an LSU fan that's ridiculous, get in the game and find the money, I'm not going to tell you that's the wrong way to feel. I will just tell you, consider everything. I can suggest right here that Brian Kelly has a handle on what is going on over there from a financial situation and what his locker room's like. And I can say, yeah, they're not in a good spot at defensive tackle. Both can be true. There's nuance there. But the entirety of college football Twitter jumping down LSU's throat yesterday was interesting. We'll see if they can find another defensive tackle one way or another. Our LSU football content always on YouTube. Hunt on LSU on YouTube is where you can find it. I know a lot of y'all get into some YouTube rabbit holes. I know a lot of y'all are interested in LSU football, obviously. Find our YouTube page, subscribe to it so that all our LSU football content shows up right there on your home page. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.